Good evening and welcome to the Technoayurveda Explorations.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. And today I just want to introduce the guest speaker, Dr. Preeti. Dr. Preeti is BAMS from the MSM Institute of the Ayurveda, Sonipat, and she is MD Swastavritta from the Bhopal RD Memorial Ayurvedic College. She is talented with the certificate course in Kshara Sutra and MBA from the Sikkim Manipal University. At present, she is pursuing the PhD in Guru Ravidas Ayush University, Punjab. She is much more familiar with the Ayurveda community with her recognized and peer-reviewed journal publications. And she worked with the Haryana government 2 years, 2013 and 15. And later, she joined in 2019 in a private institute as an assistant professor in National College of Ayurveda. I make a warm welcome to Dr. Preeti Madam. Please join our Techno Ayurveda School of Techno Ayurveda, where we want to give a regular, continuous Ayurvedic appreciations and explorations through the Techno Ayurveda. I invite one and all those who are here. Let Dr. Preeti Madam give her experiences and the interest of the subject, especially on yoga. And we can have a group discussion at the end. And please, meanwhile, do not interrupt the class. And at the end, we are free to ask the questions and we can discuss as much as possible. The quest for the knowledge is never stops. We are moving ahead. I request Dr. Preeti Madam to join yourself with your PPT and start your lecture. Welcome.
Good evening to all listeners. Thank you so much, sir, for introduction. Basically, we are discussing on the therapeutic aspects of Ashtanga Yoga. Currently, after the booming of the yoga, we in the current scenario, we are very well versed with the lifestyle disorders, and for that, for basically the therapeutic aspect is more important than the generalized benefits, because we can see in each and every nook and corner that there are lots of yoga centers which are teaching people regarding asanas and pranayam, which are just a single, or we can say these are just two limbs which are responsible for physical health only. But when it comes to the therapeutic aspects, there we need the whole 8 limbs, and about which we are going to discuss in this uh, exploration. Here I'm sharing my PPT. Uh, First of all, I would like to pay my gratitude towards Acharya Patanjali, because he is father of yoga, and he is the only one who had explained systematically why we should go for the systemic exploration of the Ashtanga Yoga, and which is more beneficial rather than whatsoever is teaching in current scenario. Therapeutics, basically therapeutic is for the healing. I mean, maximum of us are from the medical field, and they know whenever we are discussing about the lifestyle disorders, or maybe the stress disorder or pathophysiology of the conditions, and whenever we are breaking those pathophysiological conditions, there we go for the therapeutics. Therapeutics can be regarding the medicines. We can think about different procedures in Ayurveda. Another thing is Ashtanga Yoga, which we are going to discuss. It is just basically classical description. We are well aware of this, that etymologically it is union. When it comes to the therapeutics, we are discussing about the union of good health along with the better soul and mind. Tam Vidyata Dukha Sanyoga Viyoga Yoga Sangita, whenever there is a description of Dukh in classical text, then Dukh Pratikul Vedniyam, whatsoever is against our nature, that can be considered as Dukh. And in Ayurveda, Dukh is also considered as the diseases. And how can we manage those Dukha? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means whatsoever fluctuations are in our mind, in our soul, that can be resolved with the help of yoga, and for which Acharya Patanjali had explained those 8 limbs, which we are going to discuss in the later stages. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a yoga karmasu kaushalam, which means skill performance or the skillfully doing one's duties. And it is also considered as the science of life, which is beyond this life, along with the Ihalok and Paralok, both are considered in that. Ashtanga Yoga enumerates by the Patanjali to achieve the divinity or oneness. Here, whenever we are discussing about the therapeutics, this unity is of good health of physical level at the mid, and another with the mental level. In modern era, to achieve the supreme, there is a need of liberation from the diseases which we are well aware that there is a dis-ease in your body or in the mind. That's why in current scenario, we are not only treating the physical body, but we are focusing on the mental health as well. By following each limb stepwise, one can achieve the goal of healthy and fulfilled life. These are the 8 limbs, and we are well aware of that. These are the Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Basically, this image can let us know how and why these 8 limbs are responsible. Whenever we are discussing, or you can see in your surrounding, if there is a yogic center, then there is main focus on asanas and pranayama. They are well, basically, whenever we are discussing about the physical health, these main 2 limbs are responsible for good physical health. But when it comes to the overall health, which we are going to discuss in the later slides, then there is need of yam and yam. These are the roots and trunk of particular plant, which is responsible for its standing or its whole existence. Then later on, we are having Pratyahar, then Dharana, then Dhyan and Samadhi. And Samadhi and Dhyan are basically flower and fruit. After completion of those 6 limbs, then later on, we can go for the fruitification of whatsoever we are doing from starting to end. First, these are the ethical principles, which are basically for the social health, because there are lots of dimension in our health. It is not about the physical health or mental health. There are various dimensions. So one by one, as we are discussing about these 8 limbs, these are responsible for the specific dimension, achievement of specific dimension of health. Yam are the ahimsa, satya, aste, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Basically, these are the ethical principles which are way more needed for the social health. Social dimensions, in the later slides, we will discuss how these social factors responsible in causation of diseases, and why we should focus on the yam and niyama. These are the non-violent satya. If one is true towards individual and the other person, there will be a scenario where there will be less stress factors. Then aste, brahmacharya, and aparigraha, basically they are responsible for the avoidance of main causative factor of the different diseases. Then niyama, these are the conducts which are for individual discipline. Shocha, santosha, tap, swadhyaya, ishwar, pranidhana. Basically, this is the cleanliness or purity inside out, along with contentment, austerity, and study of the self, as well as the dedication towards the goal. Next comes to the asanas. Basically, in current scenario, you or me can see different yogic center in each nook and corner, where you will or you had seen that there is continuous practice of different asanas. However, it is beneficial, maybe possible if I'll get a chance, I'll explain about different asanas as well, how they work in at physical level or at the mental level. But when it comes to Acharya Patanjali, he didn't explain that much, but he had given only formulas for that. Like he had says, Thiram Sukham Asanam, whatsoever posture you are attaining, if you are steady in that, there is stillness in your body and your mind, then that can be considered asanas. He didn't explain whatsoever we are doing in the current scenario of different asanas, like Siddhasana, Padmasana. These are described in the Hatha Yoga classical text, but not in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Another benefit of the Kuryad Asanam, Thairyam, Arogyam, Changalagvam, basically, whenever we need steadiness in our body, we need good health and lightness in our body, then there is need of asanas. They have been evolved over the centuries so as the exercise to exercise each and every muscle. Stimulus is given to each and every nerve and gland of the body. There are various asanas. Initially, in Hatha Yoga, four are described in Shiva Samhita. As per the counting of all living beings, there are different asanas. That's why by Acharya Patanjali it was said Stiram Sukham Asanam. He didn't explain or name any of the asanas. Then comes to the pranayama. Basically, it's a science of breathe when there is extension of the pran. Pran is life, vitality, energy, and ayam means the length, expansion of restraint. So it cannot extension of breathe and it's rhythmic control. That's why it is said basically shwasa prashwas gati avarodha, or you can say whatsoever pattern is going on in the breathing, you have to break that either by purak inhalation, then you have to hold it, then kumbhak, and later on exhalation. So purak, rechak, and kumbhak. Basically, in classical tech, Ashtakumbhaka are highlighted because main focus is on Kumbhak. Because in Hatha Yoga classical text, it is mentioned that whatsoever is going on your mind is directly related with your breath. If you can control that, you can control your mental fluctuations as well. That's why Ashtakumbhaka are described. Next comes to the pratyahara. It is a condition where mind is withdrawn from the senses and all sense organs and withdraw themselves for the respective objects. It is linked between the external and internal limbs in the Ashtanga Yoga. Previous what limbs are the external limbs where we are working on the physical body and to some extent to the mental health. Means after that person goes towards the self realization, and at the end we are having dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, as we had seen in that particular image, that these are the flowering and fruiting of whatsoever we had done in the previous limbs. These are the internal limb of ashtanga yoga, which are successively higher level of each one, which means initially we have to go for the dharana, later on dhyana, and after that there is fruitification of the samadhi. Dhyana is to concentrate or holding of mind as long as possible in a single area. It is of two types as per the object of concentration, either that can be internal or can be external. Then comes to the dhyan, it is meditation, and next stage of the dharana, here the person becomes one with the object of concentration, which means there is no difference between the object and the view and the viewer. It is the three types according to the point of meditation. And lastly, the fruit of all limbs is samadhi. It's the end stage of Ashtanga Yoga, or as described by the higher sages, that it is the end where we after which we can't explain things in words. After that, only the person who's following all these limbs can feel whatsoever divinity or the oneness with the God. It's the stage where body and senses are at rest, he's asleep, and mind is alert. And he had gone beyond consciousness and break of bonds and removal of the limitations of the body. It was the classical description which is mentioned by the sages in the ancient era or by Acharya Patanjali as successively yama, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. We will follow those one by one. Then later on, in current scenario, we can prevent the diseases. We can achieve the therapeutic aspects of in different diseases. That means we can achieve a complete health. Yama is specifically for the social health, as I had explained in the previous slides. Niyam and Pratyahar for the mental health. Asanas and Pranayam basically work on the physical health, and Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi are for the spiritual health. However, these all are connected because in the later stages, I will explain how they are connected. Now come to the therapeutic aspect, why there is description of therapeutics along with the Ashtanga Yoga. Journal Pathophysiology, when we are discussing about the psychosomatic disorders, psychosomatic, currently we had the term psychosomatic because of psychological reason, there is occurrence of the somatic disorders, and similarly, after somatic disorder, there is occurrence of psychological disorder. Uh, First, we are having stress causing factors. We are well aware of the things that stress is of two types, eustress and distress. Eustress is, however, beneficial for us because eustress is basically encourage us to do something, and when it turns towards the distress, which means that is causing somewhere somehow um, uh, disbalance in overall physiology. So here we are discussing initially about the eustress and later on about the distress. Stress causing factors can be anything like we are discussing. It can be stress for someone else, some kind of sound, some kind of tension, or whatsoever it may be. Can diseases can cause stress. Then later on, the signal of distress is given to the brain. Then our limbic system works on that. Then transmit the signal to the hypothalamus. Basically, that is the main command center of the body. It communicates to the whole body through the autonomic nervous system to provide energy for the fire flight mode. Initially, it is good for us so that we can respond in a precise manner, and whatsoever stress we can, our body can react on that. Later on, there is activation of the sympathetic nervous system by signal towards the through the autonomic nervous system to the adrenal glands. And the response of that is pumping of epinephrine in the blood. And we are well aware of that. Whenever there is pumping of epinephrine, then there's increase in heart rate, pushing more blood to the muscles and vital organs, increases lung capacity. After increasing of lung capacity, there is a wide opening of alveoli to intake more oxygen. That's why we used to see whenever there is stress, we used to inhale more and more oxygen. Extra oxygen sent to the brain for the alertness triggers the release of glucose and fat from the temporary storage and supply to all body parts, because we are on the fire flight mode, that we have to act immediately in that. Flood of nutrients in the blood supply, bloodstream to supply energy. And if brain continues to perceive something dangerous, hypothalamus release corticotrophin releasing hormone, CRH. Before this particular CRH, it is eustress. After that, the way system is acting, it is going to release the hormones which are going to subside the same phenomena. But if brain continues to perceive the way we are living in current scenario, we are having continuous stress in our daily then CRH travels to the pituitary, and pituitary gland triggers the release of adrenocorticotropic hormone ACTH. That travels towards the adrenal gland. Release of cortisol is there. Body stays revved up on a high alert. It is directly related with the way we just start engine of a car and we just leave it as we are not going anywhere, but continuously it is burning the oil and heating up, and similar happens in our body. There is release of cortisol, body stays revved up and on high alert. As the stress passes away, cortisol level fall down, parasympathetic system nervous dampens the stress response. Normally, it happens as shown earlier, but there are lots of factors present in life by which stress present continuously. A person is in stress in his daily life, a working scenario, then there is a chronic low level stress, which causes, as we had seen in the previous slides, there is a pathophysiology of stress. If it is going to be in continuation, then there is that keeps HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary axis, activated continuously. If there is a low level of stress in continuation, that cause psychological disorders, which is very prone in these days, like depression, anxiety. And later on, effects on health is also seen, like persistent epinephrine surge can damage blood vessels. Because in the previous slide, we had discussed about the increase of heart rate, excessive pumping of heart. Another with that, there is a surge of nutrients in the external vessels, which causes cardiovascular system, and for example, heart stroke, hypertension. This elevated cortisol level physiologically changes that help to replenish the body energy, because our body is in the level of stress where we used to keep it in the fire flight mode, where there is a depletion of energy depots, because our body used to restore the energies at different depots in the form of fat, in the form of glucose, and that is released in the peripheral blood, system, and it gives negative feedback mechanism to the brain that there is a lack of energy, in which there is increased amount of appetite, so we eat more in stress and increase storage of the nutrients in the form of fat, because there is a negative feedback mechanism that our body is in stress, we need specific energy, and that's why we are eating more and more. And these causes metabolic disorders like obesity, diabetes mellitus. In recent studies, you might have seen that India is diabetic capital, and by 2040 there will be 60 to 70% of diabetic individuals in India. So these are the pathophysiology of the stress, that how even a similar smaller stress factor, if that persists for the longer duration, that can cause different diseases. So how Ashtanga Yoga can help. We are going to discuss in the next slides. First is a yama, whatsoever I had said, it is responsible for the social health. In social health, where we are living in current scenario, our society, there are lots of factors which causes stress. Yam, the moral fundaments with these help for avoidance or prevention of those stress causing factors. First is ahimsa, then satya, then aste, then brahmacharya, aparigraham. Ahimsa is non-violent or non-violent temperament. Violence is not like physically we are beating someone. Violence is basically the temperament which one individual is having. Next comes to the satya, truthfulness to the self and to the society. Well, like whatsoever we are doing, there is a no hindrance in that, or basically there should be transparency. Then aste, non-stealing. Like in the current scenario, if we are discussing with the individual, there is a sense of stealing. Like stealing is not about the materialistic things, it's about the intellectual things as well. Then comes to the brahmacharya, the celibacy, self-retainment, or another example is brahma saman acharan, which means the individual is having that kind of purity towards the self, and his whole nature is as good as brahma. Lastly, there is aparigraha, which means free from the collecting materials and thoughts. How it is working on the stress factors? Ahimsa is basically producing calmness and freedom from fear and anger and gentleness of the mind. Whenever individual is free from anger, there will be release of the stress factors, and which is later on going to help in the prevention of the diseases which are the basically uh, causation after the stress. Satya increases self-control, internal peace, and reduction of the internal conflicts. Aste basically reduction of the greed, excessive need of wealth and craving, and later on brahmacharya increase vital energy, strong willpower. Aparigraha help in retaining or attaining of rooting out all the negative thoughts and useless materials. And in collaboration, these bring harmony and peace with the surrounding and prevention of stress causing factors. Next comes to the niyama. These are the discipline for the self, or the basically these are the specifically for the individual, how he has to live, what kind of disciplines he should follow. And these are the shows. Basically, this is the purity, both internal and external. Internal purity by specific thoughts, the way we are living, the way our behavior will be. Next comes to the santosh, the and the contentment. The self contentment is more important than anything else. Next comes to the tapa, austerity or the strict discipline. One basically opt for specific lifestyle. Then swadhyaya is education of the self. What exactly I am, I have to realize myself along with the lacuna as well. Then lastly, we are having Ishwar Pranidhana towards the devotion of God. Then these are basically responsible for self-discipline and self-growth. Shoch increases detoxification of the body and mind and rooting out the six evils. Next comes to the Santosh, reduces desires and balances mind. Tapo basically discipline the body to endure hardship and diversity. Swadhyaya is for the self-realization and knowing about the lacuna of self. And later on, Ishwar Pranidhan for peace of mind. These in collaboration brings out the health, harmony and peace with the self and prevention of disease and stress causing factors. After that, we are having asanas, which I had discussed in the previous slides. That basically, in current scenario, we are focusing on asanas and pranayam, which are basically for the physical health, and these brings the firmness and steadiness of the mind and body, flexibility of the body, increases metabolism, stimulation of the system of the body to function normally, increase capacity of the lungs, increase oxygenation of the vital organs, increase alertness of the brain, which are having both curative and preventive mechanism, and it activates brain and alert the mind as well. However, these are very less benefits of the asanas. We can discuss about asanas in the next lecture, because there are lots of asanas which are having enormous effects on human body on brain. So that can be discussed in later classes. Next comes to the pranayam, that is rhythmic regulation of the breathe. Basically, whenever we are using total volume of the lung, intake of extra oxygen, increase relaxation of heart, enhance its capacity, reduce heart rate, oxygenation of brain, and increase alertness and functioning of the brain. And along with that, the main function is to detoxify the body and the mind as well. As in the previous discussion or previous slide, I had said, when we are discussing about pranayam, it is not at the physical level, but it acts on the mental level as well. Because whenever we are rhythmic regulation of the breathe, then there is regulation of your mental activities as well. That's why I had said main focus of classical text is on Ashtakumbhaka, not on the pranayam. Pranayam is just a basic description, and one part is kumbhaka. Kumbhak means retention of the breath. Whenever we are retaining the breath, then there is specific physiological changes which later on affect our mental health. Physiological changes, like whenever we are inhaling, then we are retaining the breath, then there is slight increase in the CO2 level, which release or relax our blood vessels. That's why after continuation practice of pranayam, we can feel specific mental relaxation. Sleep, basically sleep can be induced with the help of pranayam. There are different kind of pranayam which can be practiced according to the condition. Again, another thing is very important, that one shouldn't perform pranayam alone without the guidance of specific guru, because it is said wherever there is description of kumbhaka, these are param gopyam, which means only the patra or the person who can or the person who is basically responsive towards the things and can follow the guidelines of the individual guru should go for the pranayam practices. Okay, at the therapeutic level, there is a detoxification of the body, and it can help in prevention of cardiovascular disorders, respiratory disease, and helpful in their management, removal of toxin, and provide calmness to the mind. Then later on, these are the pratyahar devoid of the senses. It can help in control over the desires, which are the main factors of stress, quietness of the senses, and leading towards the spiritualism. As we had said, we had seen that before pratyahar, these are the external limbs, and after pratyahar, there will be the internal limbs. Internal limbs basically work on the spiritual health and mental health, and before pratyahar, mainly focus at the physical level. Pratyahar is the connecting link between the external and internal limbs. Psychologically, individual become calm and cool with no desires, which are the main cause of the all wrong deeds in current scenario. That's why we have to focus on pratyahar. Lastly, we are having dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. These are the concentration, meditation, and contemplament. We used to think that dhyan is like we are focusing on some object externally, or internally we are focusing in the center of our forehead or on heart, or whatsoever objects is mentioned by the different gurus. But that is basically dharana, because there is a difference between individual as well as the object. Later on, when you continue, you practice dharana in continuation for the longer duration, it converts into dhyan, where the oneness is there between the you and the object. Later on, when you can forget about individual, only object will be there. Object can be anything, that may be your deity, that may be God, that may be any external object. If you can become one with that particular thing, then later on it can convert into the contentment. These are basically different level of meditation, concentration. These calm the mind, spiritually contentment one can attain, and healthy person by body and mind. There will be no factors of disturbance, and contented by all means. These are the eight limbs, and these are the effect of these eight limbs if one follow one by one, and these will be beneficial for the individual and for the society. As I had said, we are having different dimensions of health, not on the physical dimension, not on the mental dimension, but we are, have to focus on social dimensions, spiritual dimensions, and occupational dimension, and other whatsoever dimension are mentioned in the text. And at the end, if conclusion can be attained, however, it is not the exact conclusion, because it is just a gross discussion on these eight limbs. We can elaborate it up to the extent. Then Ashtanga Yoga is itself as a whole therapy for the psychosomatic disorders, because we are discussing on the therapeutics, that we have to focus on the specific therapeutic effect. That's why I had basically mentioned psychosomatic disorders, the psychological and the somatic. It has both the preventive and curative aspect. Preventive aspect, if we use to follow specific limbs, there can be prevention of the stress factors or the other factors which can cause diseases. And later on, curative aspect as well. And it can be said as one of the best method to attain spiritual contentment, because at the end we are having purusharth chatushta, for which we have to attain good health. If one is living entity on as a human, then four main factors has to be considered, like dharma artha kama moksha. At the end we used to think about the moksha, for which in Charak Samhita there is a description in the Sharistan, and before that the first three factors or the main concentration factors for the human beings, and these are dharma, arth, and kam, for which we need good health, and a good health at the physical, mental, social, spiritual level, that can be attained by following these eight limbs. Thank you for your time and attention. If there is any suggestion or question, you can ask.
Welcome for the question answer section. Before to that, a small things which I get here. I'm very much thankful for the fantabulous lecture of the Dr. Preeti. Patanjali Yoga Sutra states there are four things which we have to follow. One is the Maitri, second is the Karunya, Kshama, and Hastibala. These four, when I am learning the transcendental meditation of the Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, I was come across and I made myself able to understand it. This Yama, Niyama, they are like Deepanapashana of the Panchakarma. Unless and until we are not going to make out something very regular and regularity of the body, we will not be able to achieve the thing. This Maitri and Karunyam, Kshama, Hastibala, I have made in some other lecture how they are going to be very comfortable. At the end, Preeti Madam may give some more explanation about it. One thing I just understand, a initial neuromuscular regulation with that of the asana, and later that of the neurorespiratory with that of the pranayama. These two things are more important to reach a psychosensory control and psychoregulatory controls. A psychoregulatory control, because Ayurveda says, Niyanta Praneta Manasa, this is attributed to Vata. Vata controls the manas. That's why I was thinking many times why the Pitta and Kapha were not included in the yoga much of the time. Because it's simply as the Pitta Pangu, Kapha Pangu. They are just, Vata is controlling the mind even. Then what about the smallest things of the Pitta and Kapha? The Dhyana and Samadhi, when we are looking at, we have to understand the different neuromuscular exercises which can grade and cure and treat an individual diseases also. In fact, the dhyana, it is controlling the serotonin melatonin axis. When the serotonin melatonin axis is being regulated and controlled, everything is going to be under the circadian rhythms and good enough. I wish if the questions are there, you please try to make out the questions and so that these questions could be answered. I think, Dr. Preeti, you can stop your presentation. If necessary, we can reload. And here, the questions, I did not see all the appreciations are there from, and I'm very much thankful and happy to say there is one person even from the outside India also participated, even though it is a very late hours. Miss Yuli, can you unmute yourself and speak your experience and understanding of this? I think you are from Argentina. Miss Yuli, can you? Yeah.
Namaskar, everyone. And thank you so much for this session. It's amazing, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You can
I'm from
ask your
Colombia.
questions and doubts. You can ask your questions and doubts.
Sorry?
You can ask questions or you can ask your doubts.
Okay, maybe later, because in this moment I'm processing the information.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
JP sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, please. Your impression, expression, questions.
I am impressed by the wonderful lecture and will do in living life to adopt all the sutras.
Okay. Any further questions, please?
No questions, please. Thank you.
Okay. This is a very nice session, madam.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm very much thankful. And next time we come out with the only specific asanas related
sure.
material and diseases, so that people may be more interested in that particular aspect, because in a day-to-day life, they can do themselves at home even. I say this is the seventh lecture. I'm trying to get more different levels of the subjects here in the Techno-Ayurveda. My aim is to make the very specifically evidence-based materials to be provided. We do not want to go with the haphazardous thing. Whatever the information give, we shouldn't must have a proper documentation also. We would like to focus more on the research. At present, I am dealing the medical astrology, panchakarma, and also pulse diagnosis. Anyway, in future also, we are going to be here with you all. And thank you very much. And namaskar. And
Thank you.
this video will be available on Techno Ayurveda YouTube. You can just see if you want once again also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good day and good night.
Good night.